everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started this morning. It is October 11th, 2016, and this is a state land board meeting, and take it away, Director Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. Good morning. Good morning, Secretary Atkins and Treasurer Wheeler. We have on our agenda a number of consent agenda items, a few action items, and then an information item section. So I'll get started right into the consent agenda, and I'll walk through all the consent agenda items, and then
Jim, can I have you speak a little bit louder?
How's that?
Thank you. Much better.
Okay. I was hearing some feedback and want to make sure I don't deafen the audience. So on our consent agenda, item 1A is a request for approval of the minutes from the June 14th, 2016 State Land Board meeting.
See if you move that microphone away. See what happens.
Look at that. Thank you.
New comms director.
Okay.
I'm like me, the tech guy in grade school.
No, they wouldn't let me near the projector.
Agenda item 1B is a request for approval of a permanent bridge easement over the northern segment of the Columbia Slough in Multnomah County. The City of Portland Bureau of Transportation submitted an application for a permanent easement on an existing bridge within the city limits. The application was circulated to adjoining property owners and various state and federal resources and permitting agencies and tribal entities. No significant comments were received. A compensatory payment of $100 has been already paid in December 2014. Agenda item 1C, a very similar item just down the road from item 1B. This is also a request for approval of a permanent bridge easement over the southern segment of the Columbia Slough, also known as Buffalo Slough. Again, an existing bridge along the same road within the city limits. Both of these crossings, both 1B and 1C, have been in place since June of 1920. And also on the second item, 1C, we require a compensation payment of $100 that was paid in May of 2015. Item 1D, a request for approval of a permanent bridge easement over Isthmus Slough in Coos County. The Department of Transportation submitted an application for a permanent easement, again on an existing bridge on Coos River Highway, Oregon 241, crossing the Isthmus Slough. They currently have a 40-year easement in place and would like to convert that to a permanent easement. The application was circulated to adjoining property owners, various state and federal resource and permitting agencies, and tribal entities, and no significant comments were received. And pursuant to our rules for this type of crossing, which is a state and county-owned bridge outside of city limits, no compensation is required. Agenda item 1E, request for approval of a permanent easement for an electrical utility line over state trust lands in Tillamook County. So this easement is a little different because it crosses state-owned trust lands, common school trust lands versus waterways, which the previous easements were covering. This is a 1/3 acre easement, a utility line, and given that it is common school trust lands, we need to ensure we're receiving fair market value. The value of the easement has been appraised at $18,500, which will be the price for this easement and would need to be paid in full prior to fully executing the easement. Item 1F is a request for approval to initiate the review and determination of a potential sale for about 2 acres of filled lands in Curry County. In 1999, the Port of Port Orford retained a permit for removal fill for the purpose of constructing and expanding their dock because their existing structure was rapidly deteriorating and in need of repair. The port did complete that dock expansion and operated under a lease up until 2015. When the department reviewed that lease for renewal, we recognized that this filled section needed to be under a different type of lease and or purchased by the lessee. We presented that option of applying to purchase to the lessee. On May of 2015, we did receive an application for the purchase of these acres. And again, this is a review and determination which would need to come back to the board for one more approval before if a land transaction and a transfer of ownership were to eventually occur. Item 1F is another request to approval to initiate a review and determination for potential sale of subsurface rights on approximately 46 acres located in Wheeler County. We received an application from Carol L. Dumler for the release of approximately 46 acres. held by the State Land Board below her surface ownership. She is in the process of selling the surface ownership and requests the estate to be whole to complete the sale. And the final consent agenda item 1H is another request to initiate review and determination on the potential sale of surface rights on approximately 63 acres of property in Marion County. This is per an application we received from a Silverton rock farm. And their intent is to develop a rock quarry on these lands. And again, this is just an initial approval for review and determination. And once we go through our due diligence process, we would need to come back to the land board for approval of a transfer of those rights if, in fact, the department results in recommending a transfer of those rights. So the staff recommendation is that the department recommends approval of the consent agenda items.
Any questions from the board?
Well, thank
Is
you.
there a motion?
I move we adopt the staff recommendation to approve the consent agenda.
Secretary Atkins, move we approve the staff recommendation to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion's approved.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the action items portion of the agenda. Item number 2 is a request for approval to sell one state-owned trust land parcel of approximately 0.68 acres in Marion County to the surrounding property owner through a direct sale. This is a parcel that we brought to the land board in October 2015 to initiate our due diligence phase. This is an isolated parcel that essentially does not have, in our judgment, any real potential for generating revenue for the Common School Fund. It is isolated, lacks access, and is actually within the boundaries of the City of Salem's Minto Brown Park. The City of Salem would like to acquire this parcel to make it part of their park. Again, this is a direct sale, but given that it is Common School Fund land, we must ensure we receive fair market value. We have done an appraisal to assess the fair market value, which came to $5,575. We did send out notice to adjacent landowners to inform them of this potential sale. Local, state, and federal agencies and tribal interests were also notified and given the opportunity to offer information. No comments on the sale were received. So for the staff recommendation, the department recommends that the State Land Board authorize the department to sell through a direct land sale to the City of Salem one bare land parcel in Marion County, accepting the subsurface interest for the total appraised amount of $5,575.
Thank you. Questions?
Nope.
Motion?
I move that we authorize the department to sell through a direct land sale to the City of Salem one bare land parcel in Marion County, accepting the subsurface interest for the total appraised amount of $5,575.
The treasurer moves that we authorize the department to sell through a direct land sale to the City of Salem one bare land parcel in Marion County, accepting the subsurface interest for the total appraised amount of $5,575. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, so ordered.
Great, thank you.
As someone who spends a lot of time in Minto Brown Park, I'm delighted that we're able to consolidate this.
All right, moving on to action item number 3. This is another request for approval to sell another state-owned trust land parcel with approximately 70.6 acres in Lincoln County to the Wetlands Conservancy through a direct sale approach. In April of 2010, the Land Board approved to initiate formal due diligence on this parcel, which we've been working on, obviously, for quite a few years. The Wetlands Conservancy contacted the department in 2010 as a potential purchaser, but withdrew at the time because of the high price appraised for the parcel. In late 2015, they contacted us again to purchase just a portion of the property, essentially given what they could afford, given the value of the land. So this was originally a 151-acre parcel. that has been divided into two separate parcels. The 70.6 acres that we are asking you to approve today is the acres that have been deemed most important and critical for the purpose of what these lands are going to go into, which is mitigation for an ODOT highway project, the Pioneer Mountain to Eddyville project. This would satisfy the mitigation for the fish passage waiver on that associated with that project. The one particular piece about this parcel, given that it is trust lands, as with the previous trust land parcels, we need to ensure we're receiving fair market value. So we did do an appraisal, and essentially the price that we are asking you to approve does reflect the fair market value and will ensure that the value of even though this is just a purchase for the 70.6 acres, the value for the entire original 151 acres is retained and maintained for the Common School Fund.
Questions from board members?
Could I ask if you would explain again, as I know you have, when it was split apart, what the appraised values were and the sort of makeup piece that has to be added into to this price because of the different appraisals?
Yes, certainly. Governor Brown, Secretary Atkins, the way this unfolded was we appraised the entire parcel as a whole, and then when the Wetlands Conservancy was not able to purchase that entire price, they asked about this smaller portion, parcel A. When we reappraised it and had what are the values as two separate parcels assessed, when you added those two values together with partition, it came about $37,000 short of what the appraised value of the entire parcel was. So what we made as part of the price that we offered to sell it at was that for that piece that they wanted to purchase, we said they needed to pay that additional $37,000 to keep the Common School Fund whole, since the fund would essentially be losing value on that parcel left over if we did not charge that extra $37,000. So with this transaction, we would end up receiving an amount of money with this transaction and then also have the value of the parcel left over that would equal the amount of the entire parcel as one. That help.
Thank you. I know it was explained in the record, but I think it's important that that principle was maintained, and appreciate it.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we authorize the department to sell through a direct land sale to the Wetlands Conservancy One Bear Land parcel to Lincoln County for the total appraisal amount of $255,000.
Second.
Thank you. The board has moved that we approve the staff recommendation to sell one state-owned trust parcel with approximately 70.6 acres in Lincoln County to the Wetlands Conservancy through a direct sale. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, so ordered.
Great, thank you. The last action item is agenda item number 4, and I'd like to ask my Deputy Director of Operations, Bill Ryan, to come up to the table to present this to you. This item is a request for adoption of amendments to the administrative rules governing the management of and issuing of leases, licenses, and registrations for structures on and uses of state-owned submerged and submersible lands.
Good morning.
Good morning, members of the board. For the record, I'm Bill Ryan, Deputy Director of Operations at the Department of State Lands. And so this rulemaking was initiated for basically 3 different reasons. The board authorized us to engage in this rulemaking back in February of 2014. Is that working? Maybe I'll sit on the corner over here.
Stand
Is that
on
working?
one leg, too.
I'll stand on one leg.
Yeah.
We'll see. So the first thing is just doing some cleanups and clarifications of the existing rules. As rules get implemented, there are issues that arise that would require some cleanup, but that don't change the substance of the rules. Also, we had a petition to change the rent calculation formula for our marine, industrial, and marine service uses. And so rather than doing that as a one-off, we invited that entity to participate in the rulemaking, which governs those leases and what the use classifications are and what the rates for those are. And then also, the legislature passed House Bill 2463 in 2015, which was an agency bill that established the Submerged Lands Enhancement Fund. And we needed rules regarding the process for dealing with abandoned and derelict structures and how to use the monies from that fund. So that's what the rules cover. And so we formed a Rules Advisory Committee, which met 4 times over 5 months. The draft rule went out for public comment. We held 4 public hearings in May of this year in Tillamook, in North Bend, in Klamath Falls, and in Salem. And in the appendix, you'll find copies of House Bill 2463, the final rules that we're asking to be adopted, a summary of the changes in the rules from the previous rules, and a summary of the public comments that we received. And the recommendation from the department is that the State Land Board adopt the proposed amendments.
Thank you. Questions? Is there a motion?
I move that the State Land Board adopt the proposed amendments to the administrative rules governing the management of and the issuing of leases, licenses, and registrations for structures on and uses of state-owned submerged and submersible land per the statutes listed in our agenda.
Treasurer Reel moves that we accept the staff recommendation on item number 4. Is there any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. I know you folks have been working on this one for a long time, and I just appreciate the time and energy spent and the opportunity for the public to be involved in that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to our informational agenda items. Agenda item number 5 is a biennial report on the Aquatic Resource Management Program, which I'll also ask Bill Ryan to present to you.
So this report provides information regarding management of the state's aquatic resources, including management of state-owned waterways and implementation of the state's removal fill regulatory law. So it covers fiscal years 2015 and 2016, and this is the first report that we've prepared after we did a departmental reorganization and reintegrated the state-owned waterways and removal fill regulatory program. So it's a little bit different in format and in content from previous submittals. I'm just going to give some highlights. There's, the report is in your packet. For the state-owned waterways, we've been focusing on increasing compliance and curing trespass situations on state-owned waterways. We've also partnered with the Oregon Marine Board to remove several sunken vessels and debris from state-owned waterways. And we've also performed the rulemaking that we just discussed. For the removal fill program, the biggest news is that permit numbers are continuing to increase with the economic recovery. So there was a significant decrease in permit numbers with the recession in 2008, or following the recession in 2008. And so, in particular, individual permits are up 82% from the prior biennium. So that's a pretty significant increase, and individual permits are the types of authorizations that take the most staff time, staff work. And so workload is increasing. The department is engaged in process improvements. We have a process improvement consultant that we've been working on to improve internal processes to increase capacity to deal with the increased workload. Recreational placer mining numbers have decreased significantly as a response to Senate Bill 838, and in particular to the moratorium that went into effect this past January. And so those numbers have really decreased significantly. And we've also engaged in a fair bit of rulemaking in the last couple of years. There are actually 6 efforts that were either completed or initiated during that time period. And so I'll just touch base on some of those. One is development of a new general permit for navigational access maintenance dredging, and that will benefit ports, makes it easier for ports to get a removal fill authority from the department in order to perform maintenance dredging, and this is in areas that have been dredged in the past, so truly maintenance dredging, not dredging of undredged areas, subtidal areas. And that rule was adopted in September of this year. We also have, we're engaged in rulemaking addressing development of streamlined permits to allow the use of restoration check dams and beaver dam analogs. So this is the use of beaver dams or structures that emulate beaver dams in order to improve hydrology in areas where hydrology has been degraded. And so we're actually in the process of doing that rulemaking now, and those draft rules will be circulated, I believe, starting in December. We also developed rules creating a new wetland planning tool called an Advanced Aquatic Resource Plan, and those rules were actually adopted in fiscal year 2015, and they create a framework for communities to voluntarily plan for future wetland and development conflicts. It's a process by which communities can identify where the wetlands are and where those with greatest conservation value are located on a regional basis rather than a one-off, one property by one property basis. Identify the areas that are suitable for development and the areas to be used for wetlands mitigation, and this speeds up permitting when actual permit applications come in, or when a developer comes in and wants to develop an industrial land in a particular area. They'll have a lot of that initial wetlands work done in advance, which will speed up the permitting process. And then finally, the department has initiated rulemaking to codify recent administrative and legislative actions affecting the placement of ocean renewable energy devices in the territorial sea. And so Senate Bill 319 in 2015 refined the department's regulatory and proprietary roles in siting ocean renewable energy projects, and that statute requires the department to convene a committee to assist in evaluating whether to establish a rule to streamline the regulatory process to authorize components of research projects or demonstration projects that produce ocean renewable energy. So it's basically we're developing looking at developing a streamlined process for ocean renewable energy pilot projects or devices. They're really in the experimental stage at this point, and so facilitating those sort of small projects and the placement of those using the removal fill law and also our proprietary authorizations, because the territorial seas are state-owned waterways as well.
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're now at item number 6, other business category, and actually have two topics to update you on. The first one is very quick. It has to give you a very quick update on the sage-grouse candidate conservation agreement. Did I get it right? Candidate conservation agreement with assurances. Just very quickly, we signed this agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife about a year ago, and what was very important about this agreement is it allowed us to put some assurances in place around sage-grouse protections that would also ensure we could continue to manage our trust lands, our rangelands, which are trust lands for their primary mandate for the school beneficiaries, in combination with ensuring protection of the sage-grouse and their habitat. We are 1 year into that agreement, and we are actually 2 years ahead of schedule. That agreement called for within 3 years completing our initial assessments of our lands per the terms of that agreement, and we have actually completed all of those assessments and are now going to be entering into the monitoring phase. So I just wanted to give a thank you, compliment to my Bend, Oregon staff, who's the managers here, Lanny Quackenbush. His staff's been working very hard on that agreement, and we're really, really pleased with the progress.
Director Paul, what do you attribute the early achievement of the assessment on? A lot of hard work.
Governor, it was really about once we started into doing the assessments and got going with it, and we're getting them done, we just decided it was important to make it a priority and continue to just get those done rather than redirect work and have it extend that longer. So
Great.
It was a commitment of the staff, and really, I think, excitement about this agreement because it really is it's a good thing for the Common School Fund and for the sage-grouse.
Well, I thank everybody who's been working very hard on this. It's a really critical issue, and we've had a number of private partnerships, and I'm sorry I wasn't unable to enjoy the anniversary celebration, but I'm very pleased about the progress that's been made, so thank you.
Great. So the other topic I wanted to address here in the other category is our Elliott State Forest Protocol and give you a brief update to the board on the Elliott Opportunity Project, which was initiated by the Land Board's approval of the protocol in August of 2015. We are entering the final couple months here of this current phase of the project with proposed acquisition plans for Common School Fund lands within the Elliott State Forest due to the department by close of business November 15th. And as you're all aware, what that protocol attempts to do is to really honor and try to ensure all of those public values that we went out and talked with the public about in the year or so leading up to that protocol, to ensure that we could retain the public values that are important to Oregonians on those lands, while at the same time ensuring we keep the Common School Fund whole. We are on track with our timeline and all of the work going into that. I'd like to thank my Elliott team and the DSL staff for all the hard work we've been doing there as well. And this will culminate, of course, in December, where we anticipate bringing to you, hopefully, if we receive a number of responsive plans, we will be bringing to you those plans and asking for direction on where to go next with plans we receive. So on November 16th, the day after the deadline for proposing plans, we will be opening those plans and the department will open all the plans and make public the number of plans received and the names of the lead participants who have submitted each plan. This is a requirement that's spelled out in the protocol. So we will be doing that. And let me say that again, since I stumbled on those words a little bit. On November 16th, the department will be opening all plans received and make public the number of plans received and the names of the lead participants who have submitted each plan. After that, we expect it may take up to a week for the department to do a thorough review of those plans received for responsiveness to the requirements of the protocol. We will be providing more information on when the plans will be available to the public in the coming weeks to participants and other interested parties, and we will also post that information on the Elliott Opportunity webpage. I'll repeat that for those of you who couldn't hear. In the coming weeks, the department will be making information available to the public and participants and interested parties around what the public process will be as we get to November, between November 15th and the December 13th Land Board meeting. We will also be posting that information on the Elliott Opportunity webpage.
About the Elliott Opportunity, is that what you said?
Yes, it's regarding the Elliott Opportunity Project. Public comment on acquisition plans for the Elliott will be taken at the Land Board's December 13th meeting in accordance with the board's normal practices for any action items that appear on the agenda. So we will, at a minimum, proceed under those practices and we'll be receiving public comments for that item on the board meeting.
And Jim, the date and location of that meeting?
That meeting is December 13th and is here in the Land Board room at 10 a.m. So that's
could you
all.
Briefly, before
Yes.
you go, could you briefly detail the public benefits that we hope to be maintained as we move forward on this process?
Certainly, Gabby, I'd be happy to. So there are four general public benefits that I would say, in my own words, are sort of surrogates for a much broader suite of public benefits that would be provided. The first is that any responsive proposal must ensure that at least 25% of the forest is protected in perpetuity for older forest conditions. The second is that there must be additional setbacks in terms of riparian management areas of 120 feet along all fish-bearing streams as defined in the protocol. The third is that a minimum of 50% of the forest must be kept open for the public at all times in perpetuity, and there must be assurances that will be protected in perpetuity. And finally, there must be at least 40 direct or indirect jobs associated with the forest for a period of at least 10 years. So that's a 10-year requirement. The first three I mentioned are all in perpetuity requirements, and the protocol requires enforcement mechanisms that we will be reviewing to ensure that those requirements are maintained in the future.
And Jim, just to clarify, these are all minimum level. Folks could certainly, in their proposals, exceed these standards should they choose.
That is correct, Governor. These are just minimums, and they can exceed them.
Thank you.
Yes. And then, of course, on July 27th, we did announce the fair market value price for the forest as determined through our appraisal process, which was $220.8 million, and that is also a requirement that plans show the ability to offer and compensate the Common School Fund to that amount.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay.
Great. So we do have some folks signed up for public comment today, and what I'm going to do is hand it over to Stephanie Hallett Cummins to take it from here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Governor, members of the board, Jim. We have, and Mr. Treasurer, we have about 37 people signed up to speak. We have an hour. I will do my best for everyone to have 2 minutes. I'll need your help so that everybody who's signed up gets a chance to speak to the board today. I want to thank you all for coming, for your respectfulness. And as a grandmother, I would like to thank the young people who are here today who I hope will get to see a positive example of government in action. I'm going to read off the first 6 names. You'll come to the table 2 at a time, but then the others can be on deck waiting to come up so we can move through so everyone will get a chance to speak today. I do have a reminder that I will hold up when you're 1 minute out, and then I have a time is up. And if nobody's listening, I will very gently speak up to remind you that it's time for the next person. So the first 6 people are Claire Klock, Sam Devereaux, Shelley Fort, John Jensen, and Fergus McLean. And I'll read the other names again, but first are Claire and Sam to the table, if you would.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, Sam's not here, so I'll just start. Members of the board, I'm Claire Klock, and I'm here with my...
Yeah, could you push the mic a little closer to you, or
closer? Okay,
you
there
to
we
the
go.
mic?
Difference in mics of different places. Members of the board, I'm Claire Klock, and I'm here with my wife, Beverly. I testified at the Coos Bay meeting a year ago, September, and since then, the need for old growth, mature forest has continued to grow. Our Oregon population has continued to grow, as you see on the highways, and there's been an increase in need for recreational opportunities. I do applaud the points that the gentleman just before us made as far as helping retain those types of recreation opportunities in the Elliott. I just don't think that's enough. The other thing is that state agencies continue to buy land for habitats, participate in restoration projects, and that type of thing. And it just seems like we're selling things when we're buying other land. It just doesn't make sense to me. And the last thing is the public supports green spaces, open spaces, habitat acquisitions through tax funding, and then we're taking land from the state forest and turning it into private ownership. I just find that we can hope that there's a opportunity or an alternative to turning the entire state lands for both ourselves and for future generations. It just doesn't make sense on a long-term basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, I'm going to ask you to hold your applause, please.
Okay, could we have Shelley Fort and John Jensen, please?
Good morning, and thanks for having us all and listening to us. We need to save the Elliott State Forest and keep it in the hands of the public. Saving the forest is good for the people and good for our planet. No amount of privatization or profit is worth sacrificing our forests. The single greatest threat to our planet right now is a warming climate. One of our most important strategies for fending off the negative effects of climate change is preserving our forests. By preserving this forest, we'll continue to have the clean water that nourishes the coho salmon. As a rainforest, the Elliott State Forest has a number of other species that also need to be preserved, including the Pacific fisher, the northern spotted owl, and the marbled murrelet. By keeping the forest in the public's hands, we will not be doing the clear-cutting and road building that would destroy the habitat of these creatures. Saving the Elliott Forest is good for our water, it's good for our land, it's good for the fish and the animals, and it's good for all of us and for Mother Earth. Thank you.
Please.
If you all could please hold your applause as the governor requested. Thank you. John.
Hello, my name is John Jensen, and I get nervous speaking in public, so pardon me if I choke up a little bit, because this means a lot to me. Oregon has 98,000 square miles. 26,460 square miles are owned by the state of Oregon, its people. The proposed Elliott sale of 145 square miles is 5.5% of our state lands. That equates to 1.5 miles on either side of I-5 from here to Portland. The $220.8 million price equates to the 4 million current residents of Oregon of $55.20. After a family of four spends their $220.80, there won't be anything left for their grandchildren. I'm concerned, too, that the sale of this much land at one time will lead to further liquidation of our common ground. And common ground is really the only tangible thing that keeps us together. Otherwise, it's just every person for themselves. I'm curious how we arrived at $220.8 million. My wonder is it just timber inventory? Did you take all the other things the ecosystem provides for us and for our descendants? Perhaps if we had have included all the value of it, the price would be prohibitive to buy. Don't sell off our public lands, inheritance, or our children's. Money isn't enough, and it won't last long. Once we cash out our descendants' public lands, their inheritance is gone forever.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold your applause. This is a public hearing. Jazz hands are very appropriate, but this is a public hearing. Thank you. That's great.
For those of you who are not familiar with jazz hands. Okay, Fergus McLean, Francis Etherington. And on deck will be Linda Hoyt and Ross Tewksbury.
Good morning. Is it Linda Heil? H-E-Y-L? Lousy
Yes.
handwriting, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Linda Heil. And as a new resident of Eugene, I'm thrilled to be surrounded by the green forests and clean air of Oregon. I'm also encouraged to be living with so many others who are working to make the urgent and rapid transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources that is nothing short of critical for all life on Earth. Maintaining our natural resources like the Elliott to serve as carbon sinks, as well as beautiful, peaceful recreation areas, goes hand in hand with that goal. The state of Oregon has the foresight to be actively purchasing and restoring lands through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. It seems fractured for the same government to be selling precious properties to loggers. Let's have the right hand work with the left hand rather than one pulling down what the other is building. And thank you for listening to my comments.
Members of the board, Governor, I was very happy to hear the staff report that they have permitted building beaver dams. That's a positive policy choice for the state, I think.
Sir, would you say who you are? I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm Fergus McLean, a retired forester and a candidate for House District 7 in Douglas and Lane counties. I'm concerned that the Land Board is about to do a serious disservice to the Common School Fund and the state by selling off the Elliott State Forest at a fraction of its real value. You're in a tough situation trying to make ends meet with the Elliott, and it's not helping that you got some very bad advice about the potential value of carbon credits of the Elliott Forest from the consultant who wrote your 2014 scoping paper, Landvest Consulting of Eugene. 2 of your scoping studies project net marketable carbon from the Elliott near 25 million tons, worth $250 million at today's California carbon prices of $10 to $12 a ton. Yet you are only asking $221 million for the entire forest. Future carbon prices are widely estimated to soon reach $50 a ton or more. Canada announced last week a carbon floor price of $50 a ton by 2022. The Oregon Global Warming Commission sees a carbon price of $60 a ton in the near future. The EPA's social cost of carbon will reach $69 a ton by 2050. At $50 a ton, the value of the Elliott's carbon approaches $1.25 billion. $1 billion more than you're asking for the entire forest, just for the carbon. Not a good deal for the Common School Fund. In his 2014 report, Landvest dismissed the idea of selling carbon credits as bizarre and not worthy of serious consideration. At the same time, they were advertising their professional services to conduct baseline carbon assessments and valuation. Yet, Landvest did not even attempt to place a value on the Elliott's carbon. Stranger still, at the very time they were dissing the idea of carbon sales in the Elliott report, they were developing a 600,000-acre carbon reserve in southeast Oregon for JWTR, the trust set up to manage the estate of Richard Wynn, founder of Geld Wind in Klamath Falls, one of the state's wealthiest lumbermen. So why didn't they give the land board a baseline carbon assessment and valuation in their report on the Elliott?
Mr. McLean, you need to wrap up, please.
Were they trying to protect the competitive market position of their client? That would certainly be inappropriate if true.
Thank you. So did Sam Devereaux or Francis Etherington ever... there's Francis. Okay. And then could Ross Tewksbury please come up if Ross is here? Thank you.
And I have some written copies of my testimony. I assume I handed them to someone somewhere.
Thank you. Good
Okay.
morning.
There you go. So, thank you for hearing us today. You've heard us plead to keep the high-quality fish habitat on the Elliott in public management. 22% of the returning coho, come out of the Elliott State Forest. And it's true you're requiring the purchaser to protect riparian areas for salmon. But what the state considers protection for private land, even the 120-foot riparian management area that you're talking about, it only has a 20-foot no-cut buffer, and the whole riparian management area you're requiring is less than the fish protection get on the Elliott today. You are also requiring the purchaser to protect 25% of the Elliott's oldest forest. But currently, the oldest forest in the Elliott, called Advanced Structure, is 43% of the Elliott. That leaves about 17,000 acres of old forest the purchaser can clear cut. 25% is not protective. In 2014, the state did a test to see how selling the Elliott could proceed, and they sold the first 1,500 acres, 3 parcels, to Seneca and Roseburg Forest Products. You sold, it was appraised at $12.5 million, but because of the Merlet, you reduced the price to $4.5 million. You lost $8 million on that sale, and then Roseburg Forest Products turns around and gives a logging plan to clear cut. The reason you reduced it was because Merlets live there, and now Roseburg Forest Products says, we're going to clear cut the best Merlet habitat we bought. What a bargain they got. This just can't continue. That was a test. You should learn from that test and not sell the rest of the Elliott.
My name is Ross Tewksbury. I'm from Portland. And I think that this whole thing just represents a real failure of leadership by you guys and your predecessors both to get to this point as this being the only options that we have. It just seems like there's a lot of other things that could have been done and can still be done. And it's particularly bothersome to me because you're all Democrats, the legislature's all Democrats. So it's not like we're being forced by evil Republicans to do stuff. And you're all environmental-minded people, and as far as I can tell, basically good people, and I've seen some of you at OLCV meetings, and so I'm just but at this point I'm very disappointed in you, I guess that's all I can say, and your predecessors, because, when I'm voting, I really feel it's a matter of trust between the citizens and the voters and the people that they elect. And one thing I know for sure is that if I were in one of your positions, I wouldn't be doing this over my dead body or something. I'd be fighting like heck to do whatever I can to prevent it from getting screwed up. I think those protocols that were mentioned were very inadequate. And I remember a couple years ago, I saw this big ad in the paper where, the state's selling off of part of Elliott State Forest, and that just made me incredibly upset and appalled. And, I've read about some of these things happening in other states and countries, but I never thought it would happen here. And it's not, if it gets sold off, I don't see how it's going to be helping the schools on a regular basis. So I ask you to wait until after the election and the new people are elected before you do anything on this.
Thank you both. Okay, Deborah McGee and Sue Craig, and they will be followed by Robin Meacher and Jennifer Haynes. And please state your name so I can keep track of who's who. Thank you very much. And by the way, thank you to everybody else for your respectfulness. I appreciate it.
Good morning. My name is Deborah McGee. I live in Eugene. I've been an Oregonian for 40 years. I'm a volunteer with 350 Eugene. 350 parts per million of carbon has been identified by 97% of the world's scientists as the atmosphere that evolved the plethora of abundant life on our planet. We are experiencing the 6th great extinction. 200 species are going extinct every day. We have crossed 404 parts per million. Our planet's ice caps, glaciers, and permafrost are now melting. It will be very, very difficult for our species to reduce the greenhouse gases and recover our stable climate. Part of recovering a livable climate means planting more trees, not cutting down trees, especially old-growth trees. The Elliott should be preserved for the sake of the habitat of animals, many of them on the brink of extinction. The Elliott should be saved for the sake of all Oregonians, but especially the Elliott should be saved for the sake of a livable future and to recover our climate stability. Saving the Elliott could sequester 68% of Oregon's greenhouse gases. Our public resources are held in trust for future generations. You hold that sacred trust in your decisions. Please don't sell the Elliott Forest. Keep it public. Keep our trust.
My name is Sue Craig, and I live in Lane County. And I know you have very difficult problems here. And what you keep doing over and over and over and over is selling our trees to look after the school system. Obviously, it isn't working. And even selling the Elliott eventually won't work. You'll still need more trees to sell to look after our schools. So you need to go back to the drawing board, please, and find a different way to support our school systems. That's the bottom line. And we're going to have more people and more kids because we can't get it through our heads that we better not do that. So I really hope that you will think this through, because selling the Elliott is a dreadful idea. And eventually, it won't do the job. You'll have to go and find another whole area to sell. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Robin Meacher and Jennifer Haynes, followed by Bob Salinger and Max Beacon. And again, please state your name.
My name is Robin Meacher. I have copies as well that I'd like to submit afterward. I am the Wildlands Campaign Director for Cascadia Wildlands. We're a regional non-profit based out of Eugene.
Okay, hold on just a second, Robin. And maybe you could pull the mic a little closer to you.
Hopefully that's better.
Okay, your time starts over.
Thank you. So once again, my name is Robin Meacher. I am the Wildlands Campaign Director for Cascadia Wildlands, based out of Eugene, but we are a regional organization that represents close to 10,000 members throughout the Cascadia bioregion. We're here today to urge the Land Board to commit to a public ownership outcome for the Elliott State Forest. The Elliott State Forest is a deeply cherished piece of public forest land in the Oregon Coast Range and provides not only quality recreation for all Oregonians, but a refuge for wild salmon, marbled murrelets, Roosevelt elk, and a host of other wildlife in a landscape that is primarily fragmented already by industrial timberland. There is precedent throughout the West and with the Elliott itself to show that once public land is transferred to private ownership, public access to those lands is greatly reduced, if not removed altogether. The Elliott State Forest stands as the largest piece of contiguous public land within Coos County, and as such provides an extraordinary opportunity for those local residents to access premier elk hunting, fishing, and camping opportunities. If the Land Board remains committed to the current transfer protocol, the Elliott is at great risk of becoming a casualty to a short-sighted attempt to address a complicated situation born out of irresponsible and illegal land management and disregard for overwhelming support for public lands. The protocol as it stands is not a balance between public benefits and revenue production. It will not protect older forests because it treats managing young stands for older forest characteristics to be the same as protecting the actual older forest that is currently standing on the forest. It will not protect our vulnerable wild salmon because it anticipates that limited riparian protections will be adequate to reduce sediment and shade the waters that run through the Elliott. And it will not protect Oregon jobs, as private ownership would result in timber being sent unprocessed to Asia, and it will not protect our rights as Oregonians to our cherished public lands. The Land Board still has the opportunity to protect the values of the Elliott that are most revered by Oregons. Instead of forging ahead in a hurried process that provides little time for a creative solution, the Land Board should reassess and allow the time required to ensure a public ownership outcome. We ask the Land Board to jettison the ongoing disposal process to ensure that the Elliott is retained in public ownership for its diversity of values that the Oregonians hold closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Haynes, and I'm speaking for the League of Women Voters. And you've heard from us before, so I'll keep it short. But the League would like to stress the importance of a public ownership outcome. Recent events in Oregon at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge had reminded Oregon of how precious their public lands are. We need to keep our public lands public. Therefore, the State Land Board should only consider any plan that would keep the Elliott in public hands rather than privatize this incredible asset. Consideration of climate change, a priority for League of Women Voters of Oregon, has not been addressed in the search for an owner of the Elliott State Forest. The legacy rainforests found on the Elliott are some of the most productive in the world at storing carbon. This is important for mitigating climate change, something that severely impacts the future of Oregon's children. The League also supports the lawsuits of our Children's Trust, recognizing the obligation of government to protect the planet for future generations. So in conclusion, please choose an option or a public buyer that protects the Elliott's remaining native forests. Thank you.
Okay, Bob Salinger and Max Beacon, and on deck are Ron Wallace and Janet Moore.
I'd like to go early because I'm parked in a handicapped zone and they're threatening to tow me out. Gordon Ross, she knows that.
Mr. Ross, why don't you come up and you have 2 minutes.
Thank
and
you very much.
I'll remind the others. And you need to sit at the table. You sit at the table, please, and use the microphone.
For the record, I'm a Raccoon R.G. Ross. That's my debating name. And I'm going to have the Egyptian Theater to debate the issue of is there a God, and then how did God create the universe? And then we're going to have the Herman boys, very popular, from the old Herman tribe.
Mr. Ross, we're talking about the Elliott today.
Yeah, we're getting to that. Pass those Lager Lucid on down for him. But I realize my there's no credence unless I prove it. So I'm going to go back and find some people at the local college to debate the negative. Log it or lose it essentially says if we don't begin logging, it'll all burn up. For the last 23 years, been no essential logging on public lands, federally managed. This shows how we can get past that. The other thing, we're at the Egyptian the next morning.
Mr. Ross, we need to stay on the topic of the Elliott. We have lots of speakers today.
We're going to do that.
Thank you.
Gets there.
And you have one more minute.
Those who want to be baptized, the football team will baptize. And so next time we're here, we'll have that opportunity here, and the linebackers on the offensive line are going to baptize the people that want. The ladies first, and since it's such a tender thing, if you want to go topless, nobody's going to complain.
Mr. Ross, thank you. Your time is up, and we appreciate your comment.
I sure like you.
Thank you. I like you as well.
I would like to have a picture real quick.
Mr. Ross, we're not going to do that today. I'm sorry. Mr. Ross, we're not going to do that today.
No, and could people also remember there's kids here?
Okay, again, it's Max Beacon and Bob Salinger, and that will be followed by Ron Wallace and Janet Moore. Thank you, and thank you all for your patience.
My name is Max Beacon. What is it with me that doesn't like
Stop on it.
No, we've lost our expert.
Turn one of them off. Just use
one mic.
Jim, just turn off
one mic.
Yeah.
Turn one of them off.
All right. Good morning. My name is Bob Salinger. I'm the Conservation Director for the Audubon Society of Portland. Appreciate the opportunity to testify this morning. The first message I have for you is that we don't believe that the safeguards that you have put in place to prevent illegal logging on the Elliott Forest will be effective. I don't believe anybody in this room or anybody in this state believes that those safeguards are going to be effective. And we've already seen the results of the liquidation of the Elliott with the first 1,500 acres where Scott Timber Company is attempting to illegally log the Elliott in marble murrelet habitat. What this plan does is perpetuates decades of illegal logging on the Elliott State Forest. We live in cynical political times where we have leaders that don't find solutions to problems. They simply exploit them. I believe that we can find a solution to this problem, and I believe it's incumbent upon you to send a message to the children of this state that we don't need to fund their education by liquidating their environment. I believe we owe it to the children of this state to demonstrate that we can protect their environment and we can support their education. We need to be both. That's what sustainability is about. That's what equity is about. Governor Brown, I've heard you talk eloquently on the campaign trail about the need for collaborative processes that engage the whole community. I ask you why you haven't done that on this issue. You skipped that step. You went straight to liquidation, or your predecessor did, and you're perpetuating that. I ask you to take a step back and find a collaborative solution, bring people together, and be creative in a way that will protect this incredible asset. Treasurer Wheeler, you're about to become the mayor of Portland. Portland cares deeply about its trees, every tree in its backyard, its neighborhoods, its parks, and on the Elliott State Forest. I ask you not to be the mayor of Portland who liquidated the Elliott State Forest. There are many people here in the room today from Portland that are watching closely. Audubon is an organization that collaborates where it can and fights where it needs to. We sued the state when it illegally logged the Elliott Forest. We sued the state when it illegally sold the Elliott State Forest. And we're suing Scott Timber Company for attempting to perpetuate that legacy of illegal activity. We are asking you today to find solutions that will bring us together and protect this asset in a collaborative and effective manner, not to perpetuate this decades-old era of illegality. Thank you.
Am I okay with this one? Okay.
My name is Max Beacon. I'm a co-director of the group Coast Range Forest Watch. We're an all-volunteer group in Coos Bay that does bird surveys in Elliott, and we've been involved in the process that the state's been going through to decide what to do with the Elliott since it started. So you've heard a lot from me over the last few years. But I just wanted to bring to you today some things that people in our area in Coos Bay are talking about and are concerned about with the Elliott. I've talked to hundreds of people in Coos County and areas surrounding the Elliott about what they want to see happen. And most people are up in arms about the potential loss of access to their public lands. The Elliott is a very favorite elk hunting ground in the fall. It's a really great steelhead fishing area. And they're really concerned that the provision to keep 50% open to the public is just not enough, and that selling public lands and limiting access is just not acceptable. Another thing that they're concerned about is that the logs from what is now the Elliott State Forest, when harvested, if it's public land, those logs will need to be processed locally. There's a lot of people who work in that industry in Coos Bay that are very concerned that those jobs that come from milling those logs will be sent overseas if the forest is sold. And there's a lot of people here, so I won't take up too much time. You've heard a lot from me over the years, but thanks for listening today.
Thank you. Ron Wallace and Janet Moore, followed by Elizabeth Roberts and David Gould.
Hi, I'm Ron Wallace. I'm a native Oregonian, retired business person, and I'm here representing future generations. It was called an opportunity to sell the Elliott Forest. I think that you should think of it as an opportunity to manage this forest properly. If in fact a private firm could make revenue from this for the Common School Fund, you, by proper management, could do the same. And if you can't, then just preserve it for future generations. The way I'd like you to look at this is imagine you're
Can you
writing...
get the mic closer to your mouth?
Closer to your
Imagine
mouth.
you're writing a letter to your grandchildren and explaining your position on this. And imagine that you're telling them why you took $220 million short-term funds that would give the schools a shot in the arm for a year or two versus the long-term possibility of revenue and or environmental quality for forever. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for allowing us to speak today. I know you've heard from thousands of people over the years begging you not to sell the Elliott State Forest. I hope that this time you'll not only listen but hear us. I live in Coos Bay, and I'm one of the people who took the day off work to come here and speak to you. This morning, the Elliott is the closest place for my family and I to really be in the forest, and this is very important to us. I've had personal conversations with ODF foresters who worked on the Elliott during 2011 when they failed to negotiate a new habitat conservation plan with U.S. Fish and Wildlife because they said that no plan allowed them to make enough money. So I wonder what enough is, but so the foresters and biologists just couldn't come to an agreement, and the state had already been found to be violating previous agreements of sound land management and then still wanted to increase logging. When federal agencies denied the new plan, you turned around and put the entire forest up for sale in what has been aptly described as a bureaucratic tantrum. But I believe that the state can manage these lands, but simply needs to have reasonable, sustainable revenue expectations and recognize the many other values that Elliott contains for all the people of Oregon. ODF should focus operations on thinning and improving the plantations that they've created while preserving the native forest there. The 2012 Evergreen Economics Report found that visitors to the Elliott contribute about $1.3 million to the local economy annually, even though no money has ever been invested in recreation there. The Elliott contains some of the most beautiful stands of forest I've ever seen that would rival the best known developed destination hikes on the West Coast. Right now it's hunting season where I live, and many families have grown up hunting in the Elliott. With all surrounding private timberland now charging steep fees for access, it's likely that these traditions will die out for many families if the Elliott is sold. There are many reasons why the Elliott should not be sold or at least this process suspended. One being the lawsuit over the sale of East Tacky Ridge parcel as it violates ORS 53450, Of course, you know that the sale violates the statute, but claim that the law unduly burdens your constitutional mandate to earn money for schools. But there's a solution. Recognize that the good people of Oregon in 1968 amended the Oregon Constitution and removed the strict cash income mandate from trust lands. It's very plainly spelled out and allows you to set aside land for recreation and other uses that Oregonians value. This amendment gives you that latitude and time to find a solution that maintains public ownership. At least this process should be suspended until we receive a ruling on the lawsuit over East Tacky. And
Janet, you're close to wrap up, please.
okay, yes, and perhaps allow a new land board to find a solution. Public lands are a legacy, and no amount of money can replace them. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next block of names were put on here as placeholders waiting for a bus. So I just want to be sure people are here. Elizabeth Robertson, David Gould. I see David is here. Okay, good. So I'll just keep calling the names in order then. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's David Gould. I'm here to let you know that Class Children on the Line Supporting Schools has changed their name to Advocates for School Trust Lands. They've changed the name to that. Advocates for School Trust Lands. And Margaret Bird and I are still working on this trust problem in the Elliott, and I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Roberts, and I am a resident of Coos County, and I hike, hunt, fish, and forage and seek refuge in the Elliott State Forest. Having wild space is very important to me and part of why I live in the state of Oregon. A lot of people have already spoken my sentiments about the Elliott State Forest, so I have a question for you. Can I have a show of hands of how many of you have been to the Elliott State Forest and actually got out of a car and walked under the canopy of old growth and heard the Millicoma? Thank you. We protect what we love, and a lot of Oregonians don't realize that we have this beautiful, intact, viable ecosystem. So many countries are putting forth seed banks to protect against an uncertain climate future. I believe that we should protect biodiversity banks. Also, selling our public lands, I feel it sets a very dangerous precedent, since there's a growing sentiment of selling off our public lands in other states. I really, truly believe that there's more value to the Elliott State Forest than timber sales, and I ask you, please keep our public lands in public hands so we can protect it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two are Peter Mason and Philip McCullough, if they are here. And I just want to let everybody know we have about 18 more people and about 20 more minutes. So if we'll all be respectful of each other, we'll get everybody a chance to speak.
Hi, I'm Peter Mason from Coos County. I just wanted to bring up a little twist. One of my friends is a landscape contractor, and he's telling me that the beautiful landscaping that he's installed is going unwatered because people can't afford the water bills. Now, my solution has been to go up in the Elliott and get plants. They grow great in my yard because they're natives. So I know that's a little twist, but it's really important to me that I can go up and get a little alder tree and bring it home, and it's very happy. So please just leave things to let us down there work out how we can manage the forest. We'll figure it out with your help. Thanks.
My name is Philip McCullough, and I'm an Oregon native, and my family homesteaded in the Elliott State Forest. And I'm not here to plead for any leniency or grace. I'm here to look at all of you in the eye and to tell you that we will not give up our forest and we will not be moved. And I hope that you would join that fight.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah Crawford and Steve Holt, followed by Sebastian Bartlett and Megan Crawford.
Good morning. I've traveled here today from Coos Bay. I live about 20 miles from the Elliott State Forest. I have 4 children, and from 5 years old to 16, and I have the privilege of being able to take them up to the Elliott to go swimming and hiking, and we would like to retain that privilege. we want to raise responsible children, and so I think this is a key time for you to show the children what that means. Retaining the forest so the children can see what a big tree looks like, because I fear that some children someday may look at a picture in a book and not be able to go and see what an actual big forest looks like. And when you go up there, it's overwhelming. You're like, wow, that is why we're doing this. And I do it for them. And I also am concerned that the water value was not figured into the amount for the sale price, because it is not snowmelt water. That is rainforest temperate water. It comes out all year round. It is cold. It does not warm up from any sort of exposure to sunlight. The trees have kept it cold. In August, you go up there and it is cold water. And it is clean water. So we need to retain the water. Water is life. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Steve Holt. I'm going to speak emotionally. I am absolutely livid by this whole process. I'm really, if you worry at all about your legacy, you're going exactly the wrong direction if you make this sale. The loss of public land, as many people have said, is just an incredible loss that you can't go back from it. You will never get the Elliott back, and I fall in love with land easily, but the Elliott has truly stolen my heart, and it's a lovely area that deserves to be found by Oregonians. Right now, there's not a single sign aiming people into the Elliott, as far as I know. There's no roads or no signs pointing you in, and very few signs telling you where you're at once you're there. There was a protest in Malheur where they were trying to push people to get rid of federal land. That was wrong. It was a wrong-headed idea, and this process is an utterly wrong-headed process. I have been shooting some video up in the Elliott, and I will try and email you links to see what I've been seeing. It's a stunning area.
Thank you. Sebastian Bartlett and Megan Crawford.
Hello.
Hi.
Morning.
I have grown up in the Elliott State Forest, and I feel it's dear to my heart. And the trees are huge. And I feel that it belongs to us kids, and we should keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sebastian Bartlett. I'm a Coos Bay resident. Grew up Coos River, a few miles down from the Weyerhaeuser Tree Farm. In recent years, that has been closed down, and I was used to having access up there, going up there with my family for swimming and fishing. I also grew up accessing the Elliott for recreation via Marlow Creek, West Fork, Haynes Inlet, and Dean Mountain out of Reedsport. My time in the Elliott was spent next to creeks, streams, and rivers. It was spent driving through stands of timber older and more natural than most of the inaccessible lands that surround us, belonging to large timber firms. I'm going to try not to reiterate everyone else's points here, but we bring in close to $400,000 a year in wages out of the Elliott State Forest. That goes to local residents. I'm worried that money from this sale will only trickle down to our area and our school systems, and it will go to larger schools like Portland and some areas that it's kind of, to me, it feels like it's stealing from the children and the education systems in our area in order to provide for other areas. There are environmental consequences such as mass movement of soils, which leads to degradation of water quality. and then also clean air and clean water, which I believe are both basic human rights. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. And as the gentleman mentioned, if you can give us some new information and not spend too much time repeating, we'll get through everybody. Micah Crawford and Sam Schwartz. And you need to pull that microphone right next to your mouth.
Hi, my name is Micah Crawford. I am from Coos Bay, and I've come all the way over here on a bus to tell you that I love the I love the Elliott State Forest. I love going swimming there. I love hiking. I love everything there. Last time I went there, I sat underneath a waterfall, which was amazing. So please, don't sell the Oregon State Forest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Joseph Schwartz. I was born on the West Fork of the Millicoma River on the south side of the Elliott State Forest. And I had to ride a bus to school away from the Elliott State Forest, which seemed completely unnatural for most of my youth. And honestly, I think we should be putting the schools back into the forest and not taking them out of the forest. We've already spoken enough over the last few years about public interest and not privatizing and not selling the Elliott State Forest, and I don't really know if this comment period is going to make any difference. So I'm going to sit and ask you guys, what do you propose? How are we going to keep this land public?
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Feel free to contact me.
Okay, Barb Shamit and Oliver Gonzalez. Barb, do you want to let your compatriots go first? Absolutely. Okay. And if you could speak close to the mic and say your name, please.
My name is Oliver Gonzalez, and I came here to tell you that you should not sell the Elliott. I've been going to the Elliott and trying to save it for my whole life, and if it gets sold, nobody will be able to go to the Elliott. The last time I went to the Elliott State Forest, this Friday, we couldn't go to parts of the forest because they were sold, and we could see the private property signs, and that really makes me sad. And my sister wants to say something.
I have also been going to the Elliott my whole life, and I'm here to say that if you sell the Elliott, it will no longer be here for everybody, and it will not be fun for us kids.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
And my name is Barb Shamit, and I couldn't be more honored or proud to sit with probably some of the smartest people in the room. I also want to thank Jim, Paul, and Linda, and Stephanie. They have been so amazing this whole process. We have come so far and so long, and you guys, those three people have been excellent. And I want to say what he said. I've been trying to save the Elliott my whole life. I've been living on the West Fork, the Millicoma, for 42 years. My children were born there. And we have fought the herbicide sprays. We have been hit by washouts twice. We have been slam dunked. We took petitions to the governor 37 years ago to stop the aerial application of Agent Orange. And we did make progress. So I'm here to tell you, you know, we don't want to sell it. And it is the biggest carbon sink on the planet. And Kate Brown, Governor, we don't want to remember your legacy as being the governor that sold the biggest carbon sink on the planet. Please, we're not going to stop. I'll sue until my dying day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Mason and Reed Wilson, followed by... Okay, who's that? Peter, okay. Reed Wilson and Anne Marie Slate.
My name is Anna Marie Slate. I've been a resident of the state for 28 years. I was raised in Alaska on a homestead, and I came to this beautiful state as an adult. I love the Elliott Forest. It is our largest old-growth stand of beautiful, beautiful trees. We cannot lose this legacy that we should be leaving to our children. Generations and generations of children will lose the joy of having the Elliott State Forest if the sell idea continues. I would just be reiterating to say, I'll say quickly, keep the water clean. What about the fish? What about the marlets and the other birds that may lose their and become extinct because of this action? We cannot put a price on living creatures and clean water and beautiful forest for us to take joy in. So please don't sell the Elliott Forest. Save it for the numerous generations of children that will come after us, so they know what that kind of joy is. Please don't sell the Elliott. Thank you.
My name is Reed Wilson. I'm from the Benton Forest Coalition. We advocate for conservation and enhanced recreational opportunities on public lands. And I want to talk about economic impacts because economic health stems from environmental quality. These public lands, like the Elliott, have enduring qualities that will benefit generations of Oregonians long after this conflict is over. Not only qualities like clean air, water, and habitat for endangered species, but the scenic beauty of our forests also serve as an important economic engine. According to the Oregon Tourism Commission, tourism in Oregon is a $10.8 billion industry, directly generates 105,000 jobs, and secondary impacts that create 54,800 more jobs. Since the year 2004, spending by visitors from other countries and states has increased 49%. Every dollar spent in marketing for tourism yields an estimated $237 in visitor spending and generates, this is important, generates $11 in returns in local and state tax revenue. That's a really good return. Well, if we can't keep these essential features like the Elliott Forest intact, then we can't rely on this continued growth in the tourism industry. My second topic is leadership, because Oregonians overall exhibit a very high degree of environmental consciousness. The last meeting I was at in this room, there were 2 hours of testimony. About 40 people spoke, and only 2 of the 40 advocated an increase in logging or the privatizing of the Elliott. But unfortunately, it appears that this is not a very democratic state. There is some fundamental disconnect between the people of Oregon and you holding the reins of government. The fact that you would even propose selling the Elliott constitutes a profound failure in leadership and a violation of the democratic principles, an abandonment of democratic principles in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we have Bob Van Dyke and Tom Wolf? And after Bob and Tom, we have 3 more folks, and I'll call you up when they're finished.
Land Board members, my name is Bob Van Dyke. I work for the Wild Salmon Center. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I wanted to say in particular, I know this wasn't originally a major item on your agenda, and so I really appreciate that you've made time for all these people who came down here today. I appreciate that. I've been following the Elliott for a long time, as testified to you about it before. When you approved this protocol, we were concerned especially about the riparian standards. We appreciate the 120-foot buffer, but that's only on the fish streams. And if you look at the entire suite of protections for riparian areas, they're far less than is required on private land in Washington State, for example. So non-fish streams, debris flow strategies aren't included in the protocol. So we're not confident that, obviously we'll have to see what kind of proposal comes forward, but we're not confident in the sideboard that those will be sufficient for salmonids in the Elliott. I guess my main message I'd like to give you today, though, is that we'd encourage you to seek a different model. Obviously, you've heard a lot of people today ask you not to sell it, but understand, too, that you have complex responsibilities associated with this. We think there's a good model in Washington State that we testified about at our last, when you approved this protocol, which is to pursue an HCP, which we know you've tried before but haven't been able to get sufficient volume from. And that's why we think if you add to that a complementary element of a trust land transfer program to compensate the school fund for lower revenues, you can both have security from the HCP about managing in light of endangered species, and then also, over time, make the common school fund whole through trust land transfer. I see my time's up. Thank you again.
Thank you.
State Land Board, Governor Brown. For the record, my name is Tom Wolf, the Executive Director of the Oregon Council of Trout Unlimited. I'm going to be very brief. I've testified many times on this. You know the concern of Trout Unlimited members, our 3,500 members here in the state, that the Elliott needs to be protected. This coho salmon habitat, the steelhead habitat needs to be protected. And I'm not going to elaborate on the eloquence and sincerity of people that testified before me today. I just want to end with, I recently came back from the Trout Unlimited annual meeting in Bozeman, Montana, where we were there from September 26th to October 2nd. And the number one topic at that meeting of 500 TU members and staff was public lands. And the number one subject of the public lands is the sale of the Elliott. It's a national news. It shouldn't be done. I realize the sincerity of people, staff like Stephanie and Jim and others that have worked on a solution. It's the wrong solution. We urge you to go back to the drawing board to look at other ways to protect the state Elliott for all Oregonians and for the habitat therein. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Sprague, Lynn Herring, and then the final speaker is Micah Meskel.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
This is my daughter, Isa. We've come to talk to you. I'm Sam Sprague from Eugene, member of the Coos-Loramaquan-Sayusla tribe. I'm a Honest Coos member. Traditionally, our people lived in the Elliott State Forest. I've come to ask you to please consider seriously your decision to sell off the Elliott State Forest that will echo through generations for generations to come. People will remember whatever decision you make. And I hope you make a good decision, which is to not sell the Elliott State Forest. I personally and other tribal members hold that as public land that we're able to go to be in our ancestral territory, which anyone who knows, if they've had a piece of land for a long time, that you get to know that place and it feels really good. I personally gather certain plants in the Elliott State Forest, cedar bark like this hat's made out of, ocean spray, vine maple, and certain plants can only get to maturity in mature forests such as the Elliott. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate the chance to speak. I brought a gift, 3 sage bundles. Can my daughter bring them up to you? Is that fine?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Take them to that lady.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lynn.
Hello. My name is Lynn Herring.
Can you grab the microphone?
Yeah.
Thanks, Stephanie.
My name is Lynn Herring. I've been concerned about forest biodiversity here in Oregon since the early 1980s. I will make my statement very short. I'm submitting the rest of it to you. As stewards of Oregon state lands, you as the land board must do all you can to preserve the Elliott. I would encourage you to actually work very hard with concerned individuals and groups that want to conserve and protect the biological diversity of the Elliott. The Elliott, as well as the Tillamook and Clatsop State Forest, provide critical linkages with Oregon's federal forest in providing migration corridors and sanctuary for Oregon's wildlife, and in particular, the imperiled species like the marble murrelet, northern spotted owl, and coastal coho salmon. The state land board should maintain public ownership of the Elliott. Selling off the forested lands on the Elliott is an unacceptable solution to generate revenue for the Common School Fund. Private timber companies are not going to err on the side of ecosystem preservation to even implement selective thinning. They will only further fragment the forest by clear cutting to accelerate growth of monocultural crops like Douglas fir for a short-term timber harvest, to the total detriment of ecosystem biodiversity with its related habitat and species destruction. Again, I urge you to work with concerned individuals and groups that want to conserve and protect the biological diversity of the Elliott State Forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Micah here? Okay, Micah, you're the last.
Thank you for having us here today. My name is Micah Meskel, and I work with Portland Audubon. And today I'll be brief. I'm going to give a voice to the thousands of Oregonians that can't be here today that have expressed their concerns through email, the thousands that have signed petitions, the thousands that have attended meetings throughout the last couple of years, and collectively urge you to keep the Elliott State Forest in public ownership and protect its natural resources. We expect that as Oregonians that we would take the initiative to protect our resources that are ours. They're for all of us. And collectively, we agree that your the conservation protections that you initially placed as part of this process were well-intentioned, but will not reach the goals that they were intended to. They will be manipulated. They will be overlaid on top of each other, and they will not protect the mature forests that remain. So, from the thousands of Oregonians that have spoken out on this, we expect leadership that represents our concerns from across the state, and that you please stop, as state land board members, you stop this process towards privatization.
Thank you to Micah, and thank you very much to everyone else.
May I interrupt just for a second? I did hand in a testimony card, but somehow my name didn't get on the list.
Okay, would you come to the table, please, quickly? Yes, just a couple minutes. Thank you. And state your name, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is John Jones. I'm from Coos County, a little place called Bridge near Myrtle Point. I was born here in Oregon in Portland Hospital, Good Sam. I'm 65 years old. I moved down to Coos County back in '83, so that's half of my lifetime I've spent down there. Where I live is near a place called Camp Myrtlewood. My wife and I managed it for the Church of the Brethren for 30 years. It has 160 acres. We just put it into a conservation easement last year. One of the reasons was carbon sequestration, and I wanted to reiterate one of the people today who talked about the value of carbon sequestration in our forests. I also want to mention that being 65 years old, I was able to buy my first Pioneer hunting license this year. I'm an old guy now. And being an old guy, I've spent a lot of time down in Coos County with the Coquille Watershed Association as a board member for over 10 years and secretary. I also am currently the president of the Wild Rivers Land Trust, a local conservancy. One of the things that's happening in our area is these private entities, corporations that are timber corporations, are handing over management rights to private entities to farm out at a price rights to hunt and fish. And it's becoming the order of the day. Places my daughter and I have hunted for years, we're not going to be able to hunt. I lived in Northern Ireland for 3 years, and I saw the landed gentry being the only ones who could fish, the only ones who could hunt. That I see happening here in Oregon. And I think it's a very, very, very serious issue. We cannot allow ourselves to become Europeanized in this way. We really can't.
this forest, for all the many reasons you've heard today, including the right to be in relationship with the land for all citizens, must not be violated. Please hear our word today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Okay, that concludes the testimony. Again, I thank you all for your courtesy to each other and to the land board and for the passion and sincerity of your remarks today.
Anything else, Director Paul?
No, unless there's any other business for the board would like to attend to. That is our agenda.
Anything else? Thank you all very much for being here today. We appreciate your time and your energy, and we are adjourned.
I, for one, would just like to say it'd be great if you put it in monumental status.
I signed this. Hear that? I'll take it. It's definitely under $50. So.